Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Happy weekend. I know in the Northeast they're expecting a huge snowstorm. Down here in Florida, the weather hasn't been that nice either, but we're not getting any snow. So, all in the news the last few days, of course, has been this rather huge dump in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And one of the big questions I have in regards to this case, will anyone ever be held accountable other than, of course, Jeffrey Epstein, who committed suicide in 2019, or it's believed that that's what occurred, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who was sentenced to 20 years in prison for her role in this case, in this extremely egregious case of abuse. Now, one of the things I think, one of the reasons we're getting these document dumps is because I believe that the public is more or less demanding it. Who are all these entitled people that were going to Epstein Island on this private jet, and this nefarious behavior in these young girls and these alleged activities that occurred on this island, and the mysterious nature of Jeffrey Epstein? How did he obtain his status of, they said he was worth $500 million when he died. How did he make his money? No one really knows those things. However, everyone is sort of intrigued by this case because it involves the very rich and the very famous. And we want answers. But at the end of this investigation and these document dumps with the names of all these rich and famous people, will anyone be held accountable other than, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein? Is there anyone else that's going to be put into the, as my partner Phil Grimaldi says, trick bag over this? Is anyone going to be charged with a crime or a civil lawsuit in regards to this? That remains to be seen. So you're entering true crime, real crime from a police perspective. And we're going to give it to you off the cuff. You're entering the Police Off the Cuff podcast. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael Ryder.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. So again, what is this document dump about? And what it comes back to is a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit filed by a woman named Virginia Giuffre it may be pronounced. I'll put a picture of her up on the screen. She's the woman in the middle. Those are two attorneys flanking her. But she sued Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, and he alleged in several interviews that he never met her, he never had anything to do with her, and was embarrassed down the road when he found out there was pictures of him and her together. In fact, I'll put that on the screen. And she was 17 years old at the time, and she sued Prince Andrew, and there was an out-of-court settlement. So that was a big embarrassment. Picture here of Prince Andrew with Jeffrey Epstein. So all of these things, the rich and the famous, there's some other people that were involved. Bill Clinton, they're reporting, had taken over 50 trips on the Epstein jet. Michael Jackson, and of course, Prince Andrew. But we don't know, again, this is being reported, and part of this case that is intriguing is that what are the allegations other than the fact that these people, other than Prince Andrew, but Bill Clinton, there's no criminality. Could there possibly be? Yes, but that would entail witnesses, lawsuits, and all of that stuff. And right at this point, there's not. It's just that now these documents are coming out. And it was ordered by a judge in 2024, they were from court papers filed in the lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell. And that occurred several years ago. And just now, in 2024, a judge has ordered for these documents to be released.
Story that's been in the headlines for 3 days here in the United States. It's the Jeffrey Epstein case. It seems like every day around this time, we have another huge batch of documents with more famous names coming to light as part of this massive document dump we've been covering all week. Today, a female member of the British royal family is named as an Epstein associate, though she is not referenced to have
freezing up. So these are some of the documents that are coming out where people have been questioned and they've been asked about their role, and people can lie until the documents come out and prove things that are quite embarrassing. I'm having a problem with my Wi-Fi again, folks. I apologize. Let me stop that screen there. So till the evidence comes out, and then they cannot deny it any longer. Pictures, things like that will be damning evidence. And when we talk about who is Jeffrey Epstein, right? Or who was he? And in 2019, when he was being held on some very significant charges in the Metropolitan Correctional Facility, where he ultimately allegedly committed suicide, there were many people that thought that he was murdered, or that it was an assisted suicide. In essence, he indicated a desire to commit suicide, and no one prevented him from doing that. No one stopped him. No one watched him or gave him the supervision that he should have had. So all of these are questions. Jeffrey Epstein, I'll put a picture of him on the screen. Here's a surviving Jeffrey Epstein, and we know all of the allegations. Here's a picture of him on the screen with another person, his attorney, Alan Dershowitz, who also now is sort of running for cover. And I don't know, is guilt through association, that he's had an association with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier. He had ties to celebrities, politicians, royalty, and he was arrested on multiple disturbing charges. He died by suicide in jail, but questions about his life and crimes still remain. He was arrested in 2019 on charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking. He was denied bail ahead of his trial. And of course, we know that Epstein died in jail, and his death was officially ruled a suicide by the New York City Medical Examiner. Epstein was a convicted sex offender who previously served 13 months in a Palm Beach County jail. He had a whole high-profile social circle. His former associates included Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Queen Elizabeth's son, Prince Andrew. In July 2020, his girlfriend and longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was arrested on charges relating to Epstein's sex trafficking operation. She was found guilty on 5 out of 6 charges, and in June 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Court papers relating to Epstein were unsealed in January 2024 under a judge's orders. The papers formed part of a defamation lawsuit that Virginia Jeffrey filed against Ghislaine Maxwell, and included the testimony of Epstein victims, as well as that of witnesses and other evidence relative to the now settled 2015 case. So I get back to my initial dissertation. Why is and why are all of these documents being released. And I know the public, I guess the public's demanding it. But is anyone going to be charged here? Or any of these rich and powerful people? Oh, I forgot to mention the name of Bill Gates was apparently a frequent flyer on the, as they would call it, the Lolita Express. And again, none of these people, can we say, allegedly committed a crime. Harvey Weinstein, the known dirtbag and Hollywood power broker that now is doing probably life in prison for his nefarious deeds. He was another player in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. But will any of these people have to answer for their misdeeds? I don't know. And so I question, why then? Why is this happening? Why is it just because the public is demanding accountability from the people that were part of Jeffrey Epstein's life?
Drop was over 600, so over 1,000 pages in all.
I apologize.
It is a lot. Some of these documents do have repeated information from the last few days, but we are seeing new scenarios being told by the people who lived through the Epstein years within their circle. And again, we've heard some of these new names too, some simply as being a visitor on Jeffrey Epstein's plane or at one of his homes, according to his house manager. That guy's name is Juan Alisi, and he gave a videotaped deposition in 2016. And we heard names today like RFK Jr., Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, several beauty queens, along with the Nobel Prize winner. Again, just visitors. We also saw emails and testimony transcripts, this is new, about the idea of somebody possibly carrying a baby for Epstein or Maxwell, something that Maxwell pushed back on in her deposition. An investigator asks Maxwell, did you or Jeffrey Epstein ask a female, and they're specifically talking about Virginia Giuffre, to become pregnant and carry his baby for either you or him? And she said she couldn't tell them anything that Jeffrey did or didn't do when she was not present. So an answer, non-answer, and told investigators she had never asked anyone to carry a baby for her. And then there's, of course, information now about a price tag for each girl that was brought in. And this is so we've heard this before, Elizabeth, that some of the girls were asked to go recruit their friends.
So some of the news we're getting also is that they were asked, some people were asked to recruit young girls for Jeffrey Epstein. And for each young girl they recruited and brought to Jeffrey Epstein, they would be given $200. So this is absolutely has been reported on numerous occasions. So,
and if you do, you will get $200 if you bring us.
Well, that's how David Copperfield winds up in all these
right.
This document dump, because he was there just for dinner, but apparently asked one of the young women, "Are you aware that there are girls who are being paid to go recruit other young girls?"
Right, and we're also learning today that some of the things that are new is Virginia Giuffre's boyfriend at the time was also asked to go get girls. And he also reports to investigators that Epstein gave him $200 a girl and says he was paid right on the spot whenever he did, saying, quote, I'd walk in the door, I'd talk to Jeffrey, then he hands me my money and I would walk back into the kitchen, say goodbye and leave. And one of the biggest questions I have is just, why did he check on anybody? Did anybody go back and say, look, we'll give
so is any
$200, but things are going to get weird, possibly.
Yeah.
That's
pretty sure he was so happy to get the money, he might have just left. It's interesting. We did see RFK Jr. Try and get out in front of this. Remember a few weeks ago?
That's right.
He was all of a sudden volunteering. I was on Epstein's plane a few times, and I remember thinking, where is that coming from? He must have known that.
We know.
I don't know. All right. Thanks so much.
So amazing. So we got all these heavyweights, all these high positioned people, RFK Jr., Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew. There's hundreds of names. So Will anything occur in regards to this? Will anyone go down for this? Or is this just news like the National Enquirer? I mean, are there still lawsuits being filed in regards to civil suits for this case? Is there going to be any more civil suits? That's why this information is coming out? Or is this, and I don't mean to make light of this at all. This was a horrific crime, and two people, one paid with his life, and he chose that way. He chose that way out. And Ghislaine Maxwell is serving 20 years in prison over this. So this is no laughing matter. How many people, if you in the chat, if you think that anyone will be held accountable for this, if anyone's going to be arrested, if there's any criminal charges in regards to this, put a 1 in the chat if you believe that. And if you think this is just a judge's ruling to release these documents and no one is going to be held accountable, put a 2 in the chat. I'd just like to be interested in that. So 1, if you think that anyone is going to be arrested and charged with this, and put a 2 if you think this is just basically a judge's ruling and these people are too powerful. No one's going to be held accountable in this case. The people that were held accountable already have been, right? So some of you guys are thinking that people are actually going to get arrested in this. One interesting thing and if you followed any of the Harvey Weinstein case, how a powerful man can get away with the things that Harvey Weinstein got away with for all those years. And I remember a very powerful Hollywood actress was quoted as saying, Harvey Weinstein is God. Oh, really? Really, really? And that's why he got away with his horrific behavior for so many years. And in fact, in this case, Harvey Weinstein was banned because he treated one of Jeffrey Epstein's girls very roughly. That's the kind of dirtbag Harvey Weinstein was. So we're all adults here. We know what was going on this island. So most of you guys feel that absolutely no one is going to be held accountable. And whoever was held accountable in this case, it's already been done. Kim Alliston, Sergeant Bill, this makes my blood boil. Why bring all the information out and then the corrupt people get away scot-free? I hope that I am wrong. Kim, I think that on the list of the Jeffrey Epstein list, if you will, the people are just too powerful. And interconnected with those super powerful people is the law and the prosecutors. And who are they related to? The government. Are some of these people powerful government officials? Are there politicians that flew with the Jeffrey Epstein jet, the Lolita Express, as they called it? Yeah, there were. So that's why I feel, and a lot of you guys can say, whispering poet, I hate Ghislaine Maxwell. Angel D, I wonder who Howie Weinstein pissed off so much that he was no longer untouchable. Well, I think, Angel D, that once they really got multiple people coming forward with the same allegations against Harvey Weinstein, they couldn't ignore it. And the famous story that busted out the Harvey Weinstein story was written by Farrow. What's his first name? Mia Farrow's son. I'm losing his first name. But when he worked for NBC, they wouldn't allow him to do the story. And he said, this is absolutely true. Ronan Farrow. Ronan Farrow wrote a story and went to the head of NBC, and they refused to let him do the story. And then he got published with someone else, and that exploded the whole myth of Harvey Weinstein and that he was untouchable. And all of a sudden, the fat man, Harvey Weinstein, the despicable person, human being, power, that's what broke the shell that surrounded Harvey Weinstein. And I remember I read a story. He was pulled in by Manhattan Special Victims. A couple of detectives were there with their lieutenant. And he actually threatened them. He threatened the detectives and the boss and said, "You guys are finished. You're done." Like he had the power to like send them to off to Bogeyland, to the forest expanses of the world, because how dare they accuse the great Harvey Weinstein of these horrific crimes. So he actually Penny C depends on accountable. Socially, yes, wouldn't support Clinton because of this. People messed up. Bernie should have won. Let's stay with the story here. It's a lot of Harvey Weinstein out there. E-baby. Yeah, I think Sedona Skies and guys that are listening, I'm reading the chat. These are some of the comments by your friends and your peers. But anyone guilty of anything ever, the guilt is part of their soul forever. That's justice. But isn't it also, Sedona Skies, we want to see accountability? Kathy Sue and Virginia's father was a gardener at Mar-a-Lago. Trump kicked Epstein off of Mar-a-Lago and the golf course when he found out they were recruiting off of the site. Wow. You know, the interconnectivity of powerful people, you cannot equal it with anything else. Sandy McMasters, not all of them were involved in anything illicit. People were searching, but for example, there was nothing found to indicate either Clinton or Trump engaged in any activity with underage girls. Sandy McMasters, you're right. That's what I'm asking. That's my main question here is why are they going through all of this if there's no if no one's going to be held accountable? Why? Is it an embarrassment, or is it just that the judge involved in this civil case people were demanding that he release the names? And freedom of information law, we know the press will put this up a great deal of time. So why? Well, and that's one of my biggest questions here. We're going to play a little bit of Banfield.
From previously released flight logs that Bill Clinton and Donald Trump and Britain's Prince Andrew were frequently among the passengers on
the Lolita Express, it was called,
board. And so was lawyer Alan Dershowitz, who we have mentioned already. There are a couple other big names on that plane: former Senator George Mitchell, former National Security Advisor Sandy Berger.
So heavyweights in government also were on this plane. Alan Dershowitz, the former Harvard professor, lawyer to the rich and powerful, frequently a talking head on TV. He was a frequent flyer in the on the Lolita Express. So, I don't know how these people can explain their actions here, or if they,
So then I'm going to continue with the House manager's deposition for a second. So he answers Princess Diane's secretary. She stayed there for a couple.
So they're just going over all the. I apologize about the Wi-Fi. I'm not getting a clear signal today. It's been a problem of late, but we'll just talk about this because the biggest, I think one of the biggest problems, what it's been settled, was the man you see on the screen right there. Think of the embarrassment that was to the royal family, and the fact that Prince Andrew basically got caught in a lie, was interviewed on television, and said he never met Virginia Giuffre. And here's a picture of him with her, with Ghislaine Maxwell also. So very embarrassing to the royal family. They weren't together in this picture, but that's what they look like today, Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre. So this is the whole basis of this document dump, this document release, is based on the lawsuit filed against Ghislaine Maxwell by the woman you see on the screen, between her two lawyers, Virginia Giuffre. So the names and acquaintances and associates of wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein, including that of former U.S. presidents and British loyalty were released this Wednesday evening in a set of court documents that were part of a suit against Ghislaine Maxwell in 2015. The documents, the first in more than 200, are expected to be unsealed over the next few days, are part of the defamation suit lawsuit filed by victim Virginia Roberts Jeffrey. Maxwell had previously called Jeffrey a liar after she alleged that Epstein and Maxwell had abused her. That case was settled in 2017, but Maxwell was later sentenced to 20 years in prison for recruiting young girls for Epstein to sexually exploit in a criminal investigation of Epstein's acts after his death. Names of figures such as Prince Andrew, who we see on the screen, and former presidents Donald Trump and Bill Clinton were mentioned in the court documents, but there was little new information outside of what was already known to the public. Some documents had previously been released in other court cases, while Epstein's high-profile contacts have been covered extensively in the media. In December, U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska ordered the documents to be released, though she gave people until January 1st to appeal the order in case they didn't want their name to be revealed. The names of victims who were minors when they suffered were not released, though some have previously spoken out about Epstein's actions in media interviews. So what does all of that mean? What does all of these documents mean? It's Kathy Sue. Well, I just read that comment by you. Sedona Skies, you cannot touch power unless you are more powerful. There's a lot of truth to that, Sedona Skies. You're sort of hitting it on the head. Apparently, Bill Gates is on that list too. Yes. But guys, again, we can assume things, but does assuming, we all learn that little acronym, when you assume you make an ass of you and me, right? Can we assume anything by these lists we believe in due process in this country, right? So you can't just point the finger at someone and say, he was on the plane, he was taking part in whatever nefarious activity was going on Epstein Island. Is that fair that we point to every single person? That's why I also question as to why all of these documents are being released. Tornado Man, yeah, Mia Farrow's son, I just had his name before, Ronan Farrow wrote the story that basically broke the glass slipper that surrounded the Harvey Weinstein. And after that story came out, Harvey Weinstein was toast. And I think, sometimes when they say you want to have justice, shine a light on it. And that's what Ronan Farrow did with his story. He shined a light on Harvey Weinstein. And before that, all these rich and powerful people were defending Harvey Weinstein, weren't they? Harvey Weinstein, he's God. Harvey Weinstein's God. And these allegations had gone back 10 years or more, and he was protected. So was that the same way with Jeffrey Epstein, that he was being protected because he had powerful friends? Penny C, people paid. Judge Acosta called out. Trump's attorney general pick got axed. Trump didn't stand up for Virginia, ex-employee. I don't know if client, but didn't support her. He knew. Lots of people know. It's whether someone will come forward. Nina WWD, but did they have knowledge of people being there against their will? Nina, I don't know what the people that went to Epstein Island knew. I don't know. There's a lot of prominent people. There's people maybe that knew nothing, but there's people that knew all about what it was about, right? Nub's Revenge. I'd like to see accountability for everybody on that list, as well as every officer that has followed policy over law, committing treason as a result. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, Go on our YouTube. It's free. Hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Ring the bell. And share us with your friends and your family. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with Canon folks, 5 different levels. And you can contribute to us in that way if you want to support this channel. Sandy McMaster's, the only person that we know other than, of course, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell that paid the piper. And it was, of course, done on a agreement that you don't publish the settlement, was Prince Andrew, settled out of court. An undisclosed, right? An undisclosed payout, which admits no liability, admits no guilt, but yet who knows how much he paid, but he paid. You can bet he paid. What did the documents say? And this is according to Time magazine. What the documents say that are released. That's what we're gonna say. What for the most part, the documents say little about the actions taken by individuals outside of Epstein. Though there is a 2016 deposition from Johanna Schulberg, one of Epstein's victims, that mentions politicians and figureheads in the U.S. abroad. While celebrities, and this is coming from Time magazine, like Bruce Willis, Cameron Diaz, Kate Blanchett, Kevin Spacey, Naomi Campbell, and Leonardo DiCaprio are also mentioned in the records, they have not been accused of helping Epstein in any capacity. Schulberg was only asked if she had met the aforementioned people, which she denied. Connections to Epstein previously led high-level executives to resign from their positions, including Barclays chief executive Jess Staley, Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent suspected of scouting girls for Epstein. He killed himself in a Paris jail in 2022 while awaiting trial for rape accusations. The documents on Wednesday confirmed the scale of both Epstein's alleged sex trafficking ring and his powerful social network. Prince Andrew, the younger brother of King Charles, is one of the names referenced in the documents mentioned by a witness for touching her breast. Andrew was also previously accused of raping Jeffrey when she was a teenager. After a lawsuit by Jeffrey in 2021, amid growing public pressure, Andrew was forced to relinquish his military titles and public duties, even as he repeatedly denied the allegations. The two settled the lawsuit in 2022 after Andrew paid Jeffrey an undisclosed sum of money. So is he the only one? Be real, prove rumors as facts. We know something. Be real. There's things called due process, and I can't, as someone, to put this stuff out there as facts. Even you see in the case of Prince Andrew, how careful he was and his attorneys were when he settled. Admits no guilt, but yet he's parting with X amount of dollars. And that's the way this horrible game is played. And there's some real victims in this case. Lots of victims in this case. And these are powerful people. So Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender who would lure young girls under the impression that they would be giving him massages that would then become increasingly sexual in nature. So they'd be lured to his house. He would pay them hundreds of dollars after the visit. And then Jeffrey Epstein would turn into the Jekyll and Hyde personality that he was, right? So Epstein had long avoided consequences for his actions. But he first was investigated for sexual misconduct in 2005 after a woman claimed that he had molested her teenage stepdaughter. Palm Beach police eventually charged Epstein with counts of unlawful sex with a minor in May 2006, but then state attorney Barry Krischer sent the case to a grand jury, which indicted him with one count of soliciting prostitution. The charge was minor, leading to much criticism and causing the FBI to open a federal investigation against Epstein. But Epstein ended up serving a short 18-month sentence in 2008 for recruiting an underage girl for prostitution after he struck a deal with the U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta to avoid being charged with any federal crimes. So Epstein later came back under scrutiny in 2018 after the Miami Herald looked at Acosta's role in negotiating a short sentence for Epstein. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested after federal prosecutors looked at his behavior between 2002 and 2005. The case against him revealed that the victims, some as young as 14, were paid to provide sexual services to him and his friends and to recruit other young girls to a circle of victims. Epstein's employees would also sexually abuse the young girls. He was facing charges for sex trafficking and conspiracy in July 2019, when one month later he died by suicide in New York federal jail. The investigation after his passing leading prosecutors to convict Maxwell for sex crimes, connection to her dealing with Epstein. Here are other high-profile names we'll discuss later, but many people thought this suicide in 2019 was a murder, and that there was never a proper investigation done to this in regards to this case. So what was it? The great Barbara Butcher, who we've had on the show, she said that she felt that the case of Jeffrey Epstein was an assisted suicide. And what did she mean by that? Well, I think what she meant by that was that eyes on heaven, I think Woody Allen is on some of the documents, the big document dump that we haven't seen yet. I think he is listed also. But I just want to make it clear, Victoria Burgess, this is crazy. Yes, it is. Nub's revenge, due process for the average citizen, but police, lawyers, judges, famous people, and those with money have no accountability. That's why we're in this position. Well, you cannot just charge people with crimes without evidence. And I just want to give a good comparison with this. Early on in the Harvey Weinstein case, when there were allegations and a witness came to the Manhattan District Attorney's office under Cyrus Vance Jr. and presented her allegations against Harvey Weinstein, the Manhattan DA's office refused to prosecute under Cyrus Vance. And this was early on, before it was known that Harvey Weinstein was the monster who he absolutely was. Cyrus Vance, at some point, I'm not 100% sure, he left the office and there was a new district attorney, but more charges were brought in against Harvey Weinstein. And this time, and also the investigative reporting by Ronan Farrow showed that Harvey Weinstein was the monster that everyone said he was. And we all know what happened. He was arrested for numerous charges, and he's in prison. He's going to be facing more charges in California. JP from the chat, so many sick guys and many cover them for the mighty dollar. What a crying shame. Yeah, it's E-Baby, Madonna was on that list too. As I said, there's lots of people on that list. That doesn't mean they had anything to do with any crimes. Guilt through association. Do we really want to go there, right? Jen's Cozy Corner. At 16 in college, I worked at Limited across from Vicky's Secret and other girls. A man came in and asked some of us to model underwear and asked us to parties, gave us cards. Well, that is very similar to this. Robbie, thank you for the $5 super sticker. Hello, Sergeant Bill. Hello, Robbie. Thank you so much for contributing to the Police Off the Cuff podcast. Joey Joel D. Forbes, Trump provided info to detectives in Florida against Epstein years ago. Kathy Sue, there are drone videos on YouTube from over Epstein Island filmed by two guys who broke onto the property and got chased off by dogs. Still got some interesting video. Well, now, did Jeffrey Epstein commit suicide to avoid prosecution? Or did Jeffrey Epstein commit suicide to avoid having to testify and give up his friends, give up the rich and powerful? Was he encouraged, perhaps, to commit suicide? C.A. Beva Forden, my teenage years were in Southern California. We heard all kinds of stories about Hollywood and even the child stars being abused. I don't think C.A. Beva Forden, I don't think that's an unusual thing. I think that maybe we've all heard of the casting couch, right? So a distinct possibility, of course, what you're saying. Epstein had a blackmail racket going on. It's called Control Files. That's, you're 100% right. And that's one of the reasons I think that the suicide to avoid prosecution, or was the suicide to avoid testifying against his friends? That's what I would like to know. And it could be a little of both. It could be a little of both things, that he obviously didn't want to go to prison, but he also didn't want to speak or talk against his friends.
A U.S. court has started revealing the names of dozens of people with ties to deceased financier Jeffrey Epstein, a move that could unveil new details about his sex trafficking, and obviously all kinds of names surrounding that. Senior correspondent Eric Shawn is following these developments from New York. We were waiting all day for this, Eric, and it's just popping right now and just getting these documents, and it's a lot of them. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Brad. A lot of them, but very slowly coming out. The list of Jeffrey Epstein's friends and people who dealt with him being unmasked, more than 170 expected to be identified, mostly business associates, politicians, celebrities. Among them, no clients, no indications anyone did anything wrong. The first thing that we do have is an email apparently sent from Ghislaine Maxwell. Of course, she was convicted as part of being the sex trafficking operation that Epstein ran. She is serving 20 years in prison. An email to apparently two lawyers saying she doesn't want to be part of a defamation case. She is discussing defamation. That was a 2015 email. So I think we're going to get a lot of these type of general issues. Maybe no explosive bombshells, but perhaps there could be. Many of these names already have been made public. That from the civil case that was filed by Ms. Giuffre, who accused Epstein of running a large and long-standing sex operation, sex ring, both here in the States and down in his private island in the Caribbean that preyed on underage girls. Epstein, as you know, authorities say committed suicide in his jail cell in 2019. Ms. Maxwell, her lawyer says she does not object to this release. So far, the release coming out slowly, could take some time. Brett?
So that's some of the names that are to be released. A little perspective. And what do you think about the people whose names are being released? What does this do to them? Does this hurt their reputation, hurt their careers? Hollywood people? You think it's going to hurt the Hollywood people? I don't think so. I think that they are what they are, and it's that business, and a lot of loose and fast things occur in that business. I don't see it hurting unless there's specific allegations. I don't see it really hurting them.
Serving a 20-year prison sentence. NBC senior legal correspondent.
So this is a picture of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein on the screen. And again, I'm having frozen.
Laura Jarrett has been following the story for us. And Laura, I want to be very.
Little
frank and
Wi-Fi.
honest with our viewers, as we always are here on Top Story. We literally just got these documents. There are hundreds of documents. Our team of producers
So they're talking about the
and
document dump.
reporters like yourself have been pouring over this, but just recently. So my first question to you is, and I don't even know if we have an answer yet, are there any headlines out of the documents we've seen so far?
Well, I can tell you, Tom, we have about
900 different names in these documents. I don't know if there's any big surprises with some of the. Although we've heard numerous times that Alan Dershowitz, the famed attorney, former Harvard professor, he's on this list numerous times, and I'm sure that's not something he would choose to be on. But I think he'll probably have a reason that he can explain why he was on this list. And again,
of documents, so it's quite a bit to pour through. It's mostly deposition transcripts and motions that I have seen in this civil assault involving civil suit involving Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously somebody who had been accused.
I'm going to take this off, guys. Sorry, apologize for the Wi-Fi. So, getting back to our premise early on, is anyone in this whole document dump in hot water? Is anyone going to be arrested? Is anyone going to be criminally charged? And I think the answer to that is no. And for anyone to be charged, they would have to follow this up. And some of the very victims of this case of Jeffrey Epstein, of Ghislaine Maxwell, have they already filed their civil suits? Or are there people out there, though, that are waiting for justice, that didn't get justice because of the rich and powerful nature of this? And now that these names are out there, they're about to release numerous more pages in this document dump and let everyone know who was involved in this caper. You know, the rich and the famous being protected. Is anyone going to have to answer to this? Is anyone going to be held accountable? And it seems that the answer to that, even though this is an embarrassment to the persons who are in these documents, emails, we don't even know the potential nature of the emails that will be recovered. But it doesn't seem that the purpose of this was really to hold anyone accountable. I think the purpose of this was the fact that it was part of a civil suit, and the judge decided to, as a freedom of information thing, potentially, to release the documents. And the public and the press have been demanding this for a while. Epstein was Clintonized. Wow. Clintonized, but Bill Clinton is still alive, JP from the chat. All these nasty rich people, gross. Karen settles, I never did think the suicide was what happened in that jail. Well, it was investigated. Then you would say that you're not satisfied with the investigation. Tadpole triplet, monsters. Yes, monsters. The casting couch became a joke, though. So sad. Yeah, I think Sedona Skies, he was snuffed. So you don't believe Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. You believe he was murdered. Yvette R. Coward. So this caper here, with all the Jeffrey Epstein, Epstein Island, even further going back, if you go back to the Where did Jeffrey Epstein get his money from? Where was the source of his money? He started out as a math teacher at the Dalton School in Manhattan, and then worked as a financial advisor for Bear Stearns, and then started his own company, and then all of a sudden was, according to some investigators, was dealing arms. How do you do that? Was there any blackmail involved there? Could that be potentially how he got his money? Bill Clinton, the former president, was mentioned in documents released on Wednesday in Schoberg's testimony that Epstein had told her Clinton likes them young, referring to girls. She also said that she knew Epstein had dealings with Clinton, but did not know they were friends until later media reports. The former president's ties with Epstein has long been the subject of media scrutiny, intensified in the wake of the financier's indictment. The two had connected while Clinton was working with his nonprofit group, the Clinton Foundation, and in 2002, they took a trip to Africa on Epstein's private jet. In 2019, Clinton's office said the former president did not know about Epstein's terrible crimes and that he had not spoken to Epstein in well over a decade. A spokesman for Clinton told CNN on Wednesday that it has been nearly 20 years since President Clinton last had contact with Epstein. Records show that Jeffrey's attorneys wanted to get a deposition from Clinton. Jeffrey, the plaintiff in the defamation lawsuit against Maxwell, did not accuse the former president of doing anything with her, but attorneys saw Clinton as a key person who can provide information about his closer relationship with defendant and Mr. Epstein and disprove Ms. Maxwell's claims. Donald Trump, what was the allegations against him? The former president, whose relationship with Epstein was also widely reported, was also mentioned in Schoberg's 2016 deposition. Schoberg testified that she and Epstein once made an impromptu stop in Atlantic City due to poor flying weather. Asked if she had given Trump a massage, Schoberg said no. Trump once called Epstein a terrific guy, but later said he had a falling out with him. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I'm not a fan of his, Trump said in 2019. So there's a bunch more people, a bunch more allegations, a bunch more people named in this document dump. And there's really, even though it's such a huge media story. Malio, thank you for the $5 super sticker. Very much appreciated. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. If you're not subscribed, go on our YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Ring that bell. Share us with your friends and your family. We'd appreciate that. This story, I mean, it's going to stay in the news because I guess it's one of those stories that people love to talk about. People love to talk about. There's no accountability here because of these people are rich. But, and I agree to a certain extent. I think we also need to realize if someone's going to be charged criminally, there has to be some due process here. Susie Dupree. I'm sure there are more names than what is released. Susie, you're 100% right. They said there was 1,600 pages of documents. So, yeah, there's a lot of people involved here. Helen, the Scottish Llama. Problem with the list is it is there that there are two groups, those involved criminally, and those who are genuine business associates. You're right, Helen. That's what does make this very difficult. That's why we can't throw everyone in the same pot and just stir the pot and say everyone that's on that list is equally guilty. Penny C. Casting couch had legs until women got positions of power. Some good men, but could only protect the ones they knew. Too many young hopefuls. Yeah, it's Tenacious P. Prince Andrew, also Charles' third brother, had 12 million pounds paid off by his mother. Ferguson denies to this day that her ex-husband was guilty. The royal family are shameful, said we have to have them. Well, absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've all heard that one in our educational backgrounds, right? C.A. Beverforden, I would like to know if the stories about the type of planes he had were true. The exterior doors could be opened during flight like the C.B. Cooper plane. I have no knowledge of. I don't know how you can open the doors of a plane in flight, because wouldn't people be sucked out the door and into the sky? I don't know if that is true. Billy Bongwaters, Epstein felt at having a dead man switch, so if he was killed, all his blackmail info would be released. My guess is the Fed found that, then offed him. Oh, you guys got some conspiratorial information out there. So, big guy's wifey, they're all guilty and despicable. Otherwise, why is the government fighting to hide the evidence so hard? Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not saying they're all guilty, but this didn't get released without a lot of fanfare. Well, folks, that's going to be our show for today. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I don't know if anyone will be charged with this. The public is, of course, demanding accountability, demanding the release of these documents. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com or go on his website, joe@jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic defense attorney, but a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. So you folks that are new today, new to this channel, I appreciate you coming by. This is a rare story for us. We don't usually cover stories of this nature. This is a criminal story, right? Not the usual stuff we do, but it is. So, folks, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Be well, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.